Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus Today. That's Tacitus Today at your Pushback channel. And thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the concepts of justice, the rules of evidence, rule of law, the legal process generally. Now, what if you're the judge and someone comes and says, hey, look, we've just arrested the devil, or we've arrested Hitler or Stalin or Genghis Khan, or any of those throughout history, Mao, and we're going to bring them to trial, and you're going to hear the case. Now, would you say, well, who gives a fuck about a trial? We just know that they're guilty, so take them out back and shoot them. What's this bullshit about evidence and witnesses and judicial procedure and fairness and everything? Screw that. So you get that option, or you run a fair trial. Now, the trouble with the take them out back and shoot them thing, we know they're guilty. We know Trump's a Nazi. That's why we can take him off Twitter, because we just know. Well, what's the evidence? We don't need evidence. We just know. So as soon as you go down an ideological path, and that ideology can be, Marxist ideology. It can be the ideology of the Middle Ages and witch trials. It can be the heretic trials. It can be any of that. So whenever ideology replaces facts and replaces evidence, then straight away you've got serious problems in the administration of justice, because justice must rely on the facts. So if someone comes along and says, hey, Billy Bob, you just robbed the bank, and Billy Bob says, oh, I wasn't even in the city at the time. We don't give a shit about the facts or the evidence. You just did it, and that's it. We're going to throw you in prison, and we're going to give you the electric chair or whatever, that sort of thing. Just this arbitrary throw a rope over the tree and string them up type thing, because you just know that they're guilty. I mean, evidence, that's bullshit. Evidence is just letting these bad people get away with it, and we're not going to let that happen. So ideology creeps into the legal system, and has throughout history, whether it's political pressure for expediency or ideology. It doesn't really matter. But as soon as you start corrupting the legal system, then you're taking away something that one day you may need for protection. And this was brought home recently with someone in I won't mention the legal jurisdiction, but they've recently brought out a book, and they're running around the place spruiking it. And they began life as a prosecutor, prosecuting men for sexually abusing children, so pedophiles, and they perceived it, and certainly this person perceived it, as an ideological crusade, or they certainly give that impression. They saw it as an ideological crusade. Does everyone know how bad it is? Does everyone know how many men are abusing their children, or the kid next door, or their nephew or cousin or something like that? So it was viewed as being very widespread, but not widely accepted in the community at the time. Now today, everyone's a pedophile pretty much, and accusations of pedophilia are just rampant. And some school counsellors and so on that I've spoken to think that between 30 and 50% of all girls are being raped by their fathers. Fuck. And they've been to these ideological sort of training sessions run by angry lesbians, and they come out with their head filled with this nonsense. No wonder they pick low IQ, unemployable women to be the standard bearers on this. They're the only ones that sucker for this bullshit, and gives them an opportunity to, given all the failures and disappointments and upsets in their life, gives them the opportunity to go and stick it up these other people who and try and ruin other people's lives as their lives are ruined. So anyway, this person, in my view at least, perceived the whole thing to be, it was an ideological thing, evidence, well, kind of, it doesn't really matter. It's, circumstantial evidence would do. Are you the father, and were you alone in the house with your children? Well, that's it. Hey, what more do we need? So there was an ideological thing pushed very much by radical feminists, many of whom were lesbians, many of whom were Jewish, interestingly. And this was in the when would it have been? I suppose the late 1970s through into particularly the 1980s. Now the left side of politics, in particular, liked this idea because it broke up families, it pitted the genders against one another, and these are all things that the Marxists like, and that the globalists use to create social havoc and destruction in the countries they're targeting, particularly the wealthy West. So this is something that started to take off, and the legal operatives in that area were again wanted the thing to be ideological. We all know that all men are oppressor, rapists, and wife beaters and pedophiles. So all we need to prove is that you were in the same house at the same time, which is hardly hardly damning proof, given you own the house and they're your own children. But they believed pedophilia was widespread. Now they got a couple of high profile cases, and which I from best I could tell were quite genuine. But from that they were able to successfully extrapolate in a propaganda sense, at least, that it wasn't just a case here, a case there. It was happening everywhere all the time. It was widespread. We're in a sea of pedophiles, same as we're just about to be destroyed by climate change. And we're in a sea of misogyny, and the fascists and Nazis are everywhere, and that Hitler's everywhere, and it's all around the next corner. It's under the bed, or it's in the closet. It's always just out of reach, just out of sight. But if only people would accept that it's everywhere and omnipresent, then their job's done as propaganda spreaders. Now, this particular operative was very much ginning up the media, trying to get them to sort of start these scare and panic campaigns that pedophiles were everywhere. And again, it's mainly women they were targeting, and it's mainly simple-minded women, particularly, who were the targets here. And they're always, simple-minded women, and women generally, but are always where the social destabilizers go first. If you want to destabilize a society, always go for the women first, always. And the likelihood of success is much greater there, provided, if the government or the men or the sensible people don't come forward. And sensible people tend to be always less numerous than the stupid people, and this pedophile epidemic thing is another example of that. Now, anyway, this particular woman was pushing this like crazy and wanting it to be an ideological issue and a crusader issue rather than the evidence. Now, more sort of sensible heads would say, well, look, bring the case to court, and if the facts are there, then a conviction can be achieved. But if the fact's there, you can't just say, and it's dangerous to say to the justice system, well, there are actually no facts, but ideologically, the guy's as guilty as hell. And in my views, there were some cases, quite a few cases in my assessment, that were decided based on this ideological concept of all men are guilty, all fathers are pedophiles. And so the evidence bar is lowered, and because of the ideology, the bar of evidence is lowered and lowered and lowered to the point where were you ever alone with little Janie in the house? Well, of course, I'm a dad. I own the house. Of course, I'm going to be alone with her at times. I mean, what else would happen in a family? I'm her dad. But that's nah. You're alone with her. Ideologically, you're fucking guilty, and that's it. Done deal. So on evidence that was, to say the least, minimal, then men were convicted. Now, because the ideology was really pushed and became such a centerpiece in these pedophile cases, ideologically it changed and transformed, as it does wherever ideology goes. It transforms the requirement for evidence in as much as the accused must prove that they're innocent, or must prove that it didn't happen, with the ideological and arbitrary power of the courts to simply raise the bar. So well, I wasn't in the house at the time, but you have to prove that you weren't in the city at the time. Well, I can prove that. Oh, okay. Well, then you have to prove you weren't in the state at the time. I can prove that too. All right, then now you have to prove you weren't even in the country, the nation at the same time. Can't prove that. You're damn guilty, motherfucker. So the courts were arbitrarily raising the bar of evidence that these men had to meet. And if they didn't meet that arbitrarily increased bar of evidence, then they were deemed as guilty. Now, even if they weren't declared as guilty, the state had the power to say, well, we've got some doubts about this. So even though we can't prove that you've done anything wrong, to protect the children, you're not allowed to see them until we say, the state, the government, until we say you could. But you haven't got any evidence. I'm not charged with a crime, Billy Bob says. Don't care. Well, we can say there's a lingering doubt. A lingering doubt. That's all we have to say. And on that basis, you won't see your kids for a long time, maybe never again. Now that's all it took. So this person, this woman, was involved in all that, and seems to think that she really achieved a great deal that was worthwhile. And it's down to the thing where if 10 innocent men go to prison, but we manage to get one guilty one, then hey, we're miles in front. And it's that ideological attitude to pursuing an objective, to say, well, the collateral damage doesn't matter as long as we get somebody who's guilty. Now, some people who believe in justice and the law and rule of law and evidence and due legal process may say, well, that's a diabolical outcome. We need evidence, hard facts. Now, the comeback is, well, it's in the family and it's harder to get, and because it's more difficult to get facts, we should just ideologically declare them as being guilty and be done with it, because it's just more difficult to get the facts than it might be in other circumstances. So that's good enough. Ideologically, we just say they're guilty and they have to prove that they didn't do what they didn't do. Now, this same person later on, as the years roll on, one day ideological fanatics come after her, and they're in the government, and they start chasing her, and she howls and screams, but the law, the due legal process, the rules of evidence, it's outrageous. You can't treat me like this. Well, the law, I am protected by the law. You've actually torn down a lot of those laws. You personally have removed them, and now you're screaming and crying and boo-hooing because the law isn't there to protect you. What is the law? Something you switch on and off because it's convenient, it's ideologically convenient for you? No. You should have been out there, this person should have been out there screaming from the rooftops that only evidence and facts in a court of law, not some ideological fucking kangaroo court bullshit, that facts and evidence in a court of law, in an independent, impartial court of law, that's how you bring people or get people to prison, or for that matter, to deny them any part of their liberty, such as their liberty to see their own children. Now, so this woman screams and cries in the book, and she's still got the victim look on her face, still is outraged today by the way she was treated, and believes that it was a travesty of justice. And by the way, just to give my sort of view on this, I think she was treated very shabbily, and I think that the legal process was not adhered to in the manner that it should have been. So I think her rights were trampled upon. I'm not disputing that. But where the fuck was she when other people's rights were being trampled on, where in my opinion, she was leading a charge to trample upon the rights of many men, purely because of this ideological construct that they're all fucking pedophiles. I've got a real problem with that. Now, I don't think, and this is the bit that's concerning, I don't think she's learnt her lesson. I don't think any people, she's deeply wounded about how she was treated, but doesn't give a flying fuck about the rights of the people who are railroaded into prison, whether they be guilty or innocent or not, based on ideological constructs. So it's hard when somebody, because this person's not an idiot, it's hard when somebody in that position cannot see, and I believe they should, cannot see that due legal process, the rules of evidence and a fair trial, independent courts are absolutely paramount. So if the devil or Hitler or whoever is brought to court, for mine, they are entitled to a pristine trial of absolute independence, impartiality. And if there's a judge, I'm not sure you could impanel a jury that could hear a case against the devil or Hitler, but let's assume for the moment you could. I don't think so. I think it would have to be a judge-only trial. But let's suppose you could impanel a jury. If were it to be me, the judge, and there was even the slightest bit of prejudice towards the devil, hearing a case against the devil, slightest bit of prejudice, that person is not going to sit on the jury. And the jury must hear and only see the facts. Whatever the devil's alleged reputation is, and ideologically the devil was then that's irrelevant. And as a judge, I would instruct the jury, and I would overturn the jury verdict if it did not produce a verdict that was absolutely consistent with the facts presented in the court, and that the devil's legal team was given every opportunity to cross-examine all of the witnesses and test to the nth degree every scrap of evidence brought against the devil. Do I advocate that because I support the devil or Hitler or anything? No, not at all. But we must have that form of justice. That is justice. Only that and only that is justice. Anything else is bullshit. It's ideological bullshit. That is going to be subject to not only ideology, but political interference, political pressure, mobs outside the fucking court setting fire to things and so on. No. Were I to be the judge and those goons are running around, I would attempt to have them cleared away and even order their arrest. Not because they don't have the right to their view and opinion, they do, but they do not have the right to intimidate a court in session, in progress, or the jurors, or for that matter, the members of the judiciary. So we must do everything we can as citizens of the West to ensure, and I think we've lost it, we've pretty much lost most of it, but we need to get it back, and we insist that our political representatives in Parliament have an absolute, the rule of law is impartially applied to all citizens. And due legal process must be in terms of the fairness of the legal procedure, the testing of evidence, the witnesses called, and so on. And we need to have that. And ideology has no place anywhere in the legal system. Now we've got an army of punk-ass kids coming out of law school through college, and they're being taught the law, and facts, evidence, rule of law. That's all fucking crap. The law is a device to bring about social change and social equity, social justice, the oppression, Hitler. And so we've got madness that's all over. I mean, look at fucking Merrick Garland, for Christ's sake, in the United States. Jesus Christ, an activist fucking hack as the Attorney General of the federal government. These sort of, we cannot accept those sort of people, or anyone who's prepared to allow ideology and political goonery to infiltrate the legal system. And we need to get back urgently, in my view, get back to assuming it was ever pristine, but to move to a pristine state where the law is applied equally to all citizens, and there is due legal process. And I've seen enough cases, over the last 20 years or so, to convince me that ideology has crept into many courts and many jurisdictions in many Western countries, and it's a tragedy. And we should all work to turn that around. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.